Dr. Tameria Warren, and this is Green Roots, a show that's dedicated to looking at the environment from the perspective of people of color. And today I'm in the beautiful city of Columbia, South Carolina, where we're going to get the ideas and thoughts of the environment from people on the street. So what I'm hoping to do is grab a few individuals and just pick their brains about what they think about the environment. Tameria Warren.
What's going on?
I'm nice to meet you.
Nice to
This
meet you.
show is a web series talking about the environment. And so basically what I want to find out, just what are your thoughts in general about either global warming, climate change, the environment itself? Have any thoughts, perspectives, ideas?
Well, as far as global warming goes, I think it's definitely something that's man-made. It's a human. It's all made by humans.
I think it's controlled by man. I think it has a lot to do with man himself. There's I don't want to call it a corporation, but I have to, but it's called HARP. There's people who can control the weather.
You know, I think between pollution and what humans have done to the environment over centuries of time, it definitely impacts the environment up to this point. And I think unless we make a change or change in the way we're doing things, it's going to get worse, and our kids may not have the same, I guess, type of environment or weather as we were able to kind of enjoy or not enjoy it as we were growing up.
Global warming and environmental change, I definitely believe that it is happening because I'm hearing a lot of people from an older generation speak on times like October. They say that it usually gets a lot more colder in those times. And now we're witnessing times in December and January, February, and so on and so forth where the temperature is a little bit higher. So I think that it is affecting our climate.
Well, we could always do better at taking care of the environment. I don't think there's going to be any much we can change about stuff happening into the environment over time. It's going to happen. Time's going to go and things are going to change. Ice caps are going to melt. There isn't much we can do, but there are little things we can do. Use more of the wind, I guess, if that was something.
Okay, so alternative energy
Yeah.
sources.
There are always different ways we could save energy or use some natural resources we have to produce energy without killing off the natural resources.
So I'm curious, are there different things that you do personally? Like, do you recycle? Do you compost? Like, what do you have any like actual activities that you do?
I'm very guilty. I don't recycle as much as I should, but I thought about it, but I just don't, man. I think it got a lot to do with my neighborhood.
And how what does that mean?
Most neighborhoods you move into, they have like a trash can and a recycling can that they put in front of each residence. Where I stay now, it's really not that, they're not really on that where I stay at.
Okay, so your county or city could do a better job as providing you the resources.
Absolutely, we're taxpaying citizens, so there's really no excuse. That's how I feel.
So if you had your bins, you would be more compelled to actually recycle?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do composting and recyclable of glass and plastic and cardboard. I know there's more that we can do, but at least, you know, to start, and I think people should at least take a look at that and do what they can to improve their footprint.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I haven't exercised those practices of environmental contingency, but I believe that we should participate in that, but we don't because we're not educated on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very aware of my own carbon footprint, so as a result, I do recycle. I don't compost. I'm not there yet. I'm not at that level, but I do like to recycle. I'm very mindful of where I put my litter, and that's inside a receptacle. So, you know, to that extent, you know, I'm very mindful of my carbon footprint. If each and every other human can be mindful of their carbon footprint as well, then we can get to a place where we can do something about the negative effects of global warming, which were in fact caused by human beings.
Okay. Do you think there's more that our governments, our elected officials could do as far as addressing environmental issues or global warming or climate change?
Sure. A lot of us citizens come up with the ideas. One thing they can do is take more of their time and energy and listening to them and actually implementing them. Because it hurts nothing to try to do something that saves the plants, that saves the trees. So, yeah, we can always use more assistance from the government.
And just a quick question. So, is there anything that you do on a personal basis, whether at home or work? Do you recycle, compost? Do you try to conserve, reduce? Are there any like personal things that you do to help protect the environment?
Yeah, we're avid recyclers at home, and actually I work for the state and I work for the recycling division, so I do it on a daily basis.
Well, this was perfect.
Thank you.
You actually practice what you do, or you practice what you preach.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I just have one more question. So I've been dealing with the environment for many years, either as a environmental specialist, an engineer, or a professor. And what I yes. And so what I've noticed is that there's a stereotype or perspective that African Americans or people of color don't have interest in environmental issues, or even like with policy, or just kind of just the whole notion of environmentalism. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think as a whole, we as a people and people of color don't have the same type of mindset with regards to global warming. I would say collectively we feel as a majority that, you know, it's someone else's problem. It won't matter to me when I'm not here. And I say that because not only have I lived in Colombia, I've lived in other cities where I've seen my people come out of the corner store and throw things on the ground. Throw the chip wrapper on the ground. Throw whatever, whatever they're drinking, bottled water, whatever, just throw it on the ground. And, there's a receptacle not far from them. So, like, I've seen it with my own 4 eyes. I've seen, like, the way we as a people kind of think about the environment I've seen it through our actions. So, yeah, I would agree with that. Now, how do we get there to a place where everyone is more mindful of the environment for themselves and for their people and their people's people, and so it's here long after we're gone? How we get there, I think the best way might be to educate each other, speak on these things, give truth to them, and give light to them as much as possible.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Those were awesome answers.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Well, good afternoon. We have a special treat today. I would like to introduce my sister friend, Dr. Portia Moore. We're going to talk to her about her interest in the environment, nature, and outdoors, and just kind of chit chat about her experiences in life as it relates to environmentalism. So, Dr. Moore, how are you doing? That's good.
How you doing?
How's life been treating you?
Very, very well.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. So if you could just kind of tell the viewing audience a little bit about yourself, what you're currently doing at the moment.
Okay, so I graduated from USC in May of 2017 with a degree in Cultural Heritage Informatics and Museum Management.
Okay.
I've always been a great outdoor lover. I got that from my grandmother, who was somebody who planted what she called a garden, which was actually a couple of acres of vegetables.
Okay.
I had a lot of health issues in the last several years, and I created what I called Portia's Healing Hikes. And so that was a way for me to connect with nature and green spaces, but also to try and find a place to heal and grow and learn while I was outside. So I started that group about 3 years ago, and we go on healing hikes.
Okay.
And we start the hikes off in silence. We get together in a group, in a circle, and we pray, we meditate, and then we kind of, take our hikes in silence, and we get together at the end and talk about what healing means for us.
Okay. So who normally accompanies you on these hikes?
It varies. Sometimes we have families with children. Sometimes we just have groups of girlfriends. Sometimes it's just myself and a couple of other girlfriends, but basically people who are really wanting to be in tune with nature and in green spaces, and also really in tune with their bodies and wanting to heal.
Okay. And so with these hikes, are we looking at your typical outdoor areas like a national park,
Yes.
or are we looking at maybe urban spaces, or does it vary?
We're looking at all kinds of spaces. In particular, we've actually come out here and done an event. And one of the things that I also want to talk about with the healing hikes is sometimes the healing hike is in response to what's going on in the country nationally.
Okay.
So when we have all of these instances of police brutality, and some of these things that even with this election, sometimes our bodies, the way that we kind of keep and hold in stress, it's a good way for us to kind of just heal with the nation, heal with the country, heal with it within our community. So sometimes the healing hikes are based on that. So it can be an urban setting, it could be a neighborhood. Our very first hike was at Congaree National Park, and that was really great. We ended the hike by doing some sort of nature painting out by the that overlook on the river out there. So it just kind of depends.
Okay. And so for the individuals who are on these hikes, are they predominantly African American, or do you have a diverse population that goes out there with you?
They're all African American women who've accompanied us on the healing hikes.
Really?
African American women and children.
Now, the interesting thing is, are these African American women, children, families, are they already considered outdoor enthusiasts, or have you gotten an influx of people who this is like their first introduction to the environment?
Largely, I have been able to recruit folks who would identify as those who do not love the outdoors
Really?
in any way. So that's been really good. And I think the draw has been, again, that desire to heal and use nature and our surrounding environment as the vehicle in which to do the healing.
Okay.
So I'm not getting avid hikers in any way.
Okay, well that's interesting, and that's good that you're drawing a different demographic or population of people who wouldn't necessarily identify as outdoor enthusiasts or environmentalists. So that's a thumbs up for you. So getting back to kind of your upbringing, it was interesting that you said your grandmother really introduced you to the environment or outdoors kind of through her gardening techniques. And so tell me a little bit more about your background. Where did you grow up? Are you a native of South Carolina, or did you grow up elsewhere?
So I grew up here in Columbia, South Carolina, in a very sort of urban setting. But my family is from the PD area, so like Johnsonville, Hemingway, South Carolina. We do a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting. My family are farmers. They grew up growing first cotton and then tobacco. Okay. So I spent my summers and most weekends on my grandparents' farms, running through the fields, throwing what we call dirt bombs at each other. My grandparents had cows and one horse who thought it was a cow. Okay. Pigs. And so that was actually when I learned to fall in love with the land, right? So both of my parents are from that area. Both of their families are farmers. A long connection of a history of being connected to the land. Okay. Because the land is very important for African Americans, particularly in the South. It's not just a place where our formerly enslaved ancestors came from, but it was also that opportunity for us to kind of carve out a space for ourselves, like in the universe. Growing up in that environment, most kids on the weekend, they'd be like, we're going to the skating ring and we're going to the mall. What are you doing? We're going to the farm. Okay. So that's kind of how I grew up. But I loved it. My grandparents' farm is down the end of a very long dirt road. Okay. And so that actually was when I first started hiking. We would hike all the way out to the main road, walking down her dirt road. Okay. And we would look for things like deer tracks and, raccoon prints. And, we would look for possum trails and that kind of thing, and we loved any kind of deer sighting, so we'd always look for deer sighting. And my grandparents had it's not really a river, but when it rained really hard, it would kind of create like a little channel like a stream through the land. And so we would have we would swing on what we called monkey vines. So we would swing through the monkey vines, and we really grew as human beings. As individuals, we were very connected to each other from the way that we interacted with our environment, our natural environment. So I really feel like my love of land and nature and hiking really did originate from that place. Because on the flip side, my dad's, the other side of his family, all migrated up north during the migration.
And I can relate to that with my family.
And so they were not in any way trying to come back down south and be connected with the land in that way. I think now everybody has a different appreciation for it, but And so also again with my grandmother's influence, she grew everything that we ate. So we only really went to this grocery store to get like dry goods, like flour and sugar. My grandmother used to have these really big, these huge mason jars, and so she would sun brew her tea. So I have early memories of her just, kind of putting the sugar in the tea bags out at a certain time of the day and letting that sun brew that tea. Like I said, all of my uncles and all of the men did all the hunting, and we'd have to do some of the cleaning, with the ringing of the chickens and that kind of thing. And I think as far back as I can remember, because they had so much land, I would do what I would call wanderings. So I would kind of sneak off and go like behind the tobacco barn where they kind of smoked and cured the tobacco, and I would just go for hikes on my own for hours at a time. And my grandma would always be like, "You better be careful out there. There's going to be snakes." But I loved it, and for me, that was sort of also like my church.
So it really had a spiritual connection.
Very spiritual connection for me. I have always written poetry, and I've always done some kind of art, whether it's sketching or painting. And so as a child, I mean, I was out hiking for hours, usually by myself. And I'd take my little journal or some paper or whatever. I'd bring things back so I can write about it later on. But for me, nature and green spaces and like the natural environment is a way for me to connect with my spirit. It's a way for me to connect with others. And I think as I get older, and because I have 8-year-old twins, I'm really making sure that I pass that down for them. My son loves bugs and insects just like I do, which I love. So we're outside all the time looking for bugs. We're great animal lovers. And so, the nature and green spaces just it really is sort of part of who I am.
So I do follow you on social media, so I get to see really what's happening on a daily basis, weekly basis. I know that you have the quails, and I know your children love, what is it, you don't have chickens.
I do have chickens. They're silky chickens, which is a very specific breed of chicken. So they basically, they feel like a rabbit. So they have feathers, but their feathers are very soft, and they're called the cats of the chicken world. They purr and they love to be held. So we have silky chickens, we have button quails, and we have rats.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I knew you had the rats, and that was interesting. How did they become part of the family?
My son is 8 years old now. When he was about 3, we had to start flying to Boston because he had to have a special surgery on his foot. And we were in Boston Commons one summer, and there was a young woman who had a big, fat, meaty rat on a harness, like walking this rat like a dog in Boston Commons Park.
Really?
And my son was so fascinated. And this rat was really smart and loving.
So she trained it and everything? Or
I guess so. He was
nature?
walking on the little harness, and he was out. I mean, he was just loving life. Doing little tricks and stuff. And my son was so enamored. So we sat there with this woman and her rat for at least 2 hours.
Really? Okay.
And he was 3. And so I was like, he'll forget about this. He would not let it go. So from age 3 until, I think we've had the rats now about a year and a half. Roughly 6 or 7-ish. He's asked for a rat.
So you just finally gave in and just
I did not give in.
Oh,
I was
really?
actually on a trip, and I got a couple text messages from my father, and it was like my son and the rat, and it was like ta-da, like surprise. So so we have rats.
Oh wow!
That was Grandpa spoiling him.
That's very interesting. But I love the whole story that you have as far as that connection from childhood to family, even now with your children. And being along this journey, even with the hikes that you take, and especially with them being primarily African American women or just people from our community. What do you envision, or what do you see for us as a culture, as a community, as it relates to the environment? I know you and I both have a passion for it, and it's something that we either do on a daily basis within our careers or kind of incorporate it in. But how would you like to see more of our kinfolk kind of involved, or just basically what is your interest or your vision for it?
My vision is that our people would stop believing the lies and the fallacies that we are somehow disconnected from the earth. We are a people who, our knowledge base, if you trace it back, is all informed by the sky, the sun. You know, we read signs. We have a knowledge base that is so culturally rich that we are very much separated from. That goes, you know, you can look at that throughout the diaspora, like how people of color are profoundly connected to the earth. And I think because of the traumatic impact of the institution of slavery, that over time younger generations somehow want to be divorced or separated from what they think is a negative understanding of their relationship with the earth. So I really want us to kind of peel that back some and think about the fact that because of the land that we were on, we were able to survive. We were brought here because of that knowledge, right? We were brought here because we knew how to grow rice. We knew how to harvest indigo. We were great hunters, that kind of thing. So I just want us to kind of have some pride about that.
Yeah.
And I also, you know, what was that, yesterday or the day before, when they announced the ban was over about the elephants.
The elephants in Africa
And yeah.
for trophy.
And, you know, I was just like, we are about to be the generation that in our lifetime willfully and knowingly murdered, basically will make elephants extinct. And not just elephants, but like all types of animals. So we're seeing rapid decline in bird populations because we're so obsessed with cats that we're letting these cats go out and become feral, and they're killing millions of songbirds. And, you know, I think about, you know, again, I have quails and I have chickens. But I'm very much love birds. And like I think about how growing up, I would listen out for bird songs. You know, that's one of the things I'm very passionate about. It's like, again, just nature and animals and like how we interact with them. So I think my hope for us as a people is that we will begin to really relearn and understand who we are. And that indigenous knowledge that we carry with us no matter what parts of the continents that we're on. And then if we're not careful, we're going to have generations that will have never seen a living elephant, or will have never seen a whale, and I can think about all of the native birds in South Carolina, like how sad it would be if there were whole species of birds that our children would not have been able to see. So I think that whole idea of like conservation and preservation is so important. And also, you know, going back to like our National Park Service and how we have so many monuments, right? Or like so many historically significant green spaces that we really don't know about, that we really need to kind of reconnect. I don't know if that 100% answers your question, but I think
it gets to the heart of it.
Yeah, I just think that my hope and my dream for us is that we will recognize that these spaces belong to us, and that it really is a fragmentation when we don't recognize and understand that we really are not just rooted, but we really learn and understand who we are as a people. When I think about like the Dogon tribes in Africa, thousands of years before we got to like the quote unquote Greek knowledge, the Dogon people with hardly any technology was able to read this, you know what I mean? Read and understand the celestial heavens in a way that still has impact and relevance in 2017. So it's not as if we are disconnected in any way. So I think that's my hope, is that we will not be fragmented. We'll begin to truly see ourselves in all of our dimensions,
Okay.
and how that's connected through nature and green spaces.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Well, as we're coming up on the end of the year, so we only have about 2 more months left. Looking forward to 2018, what is kind of on your schedule? What do you have planned? What's the visions for your healing walks, and even incorporating environmentalism into your work as it relates to art or the library? So just really what's on your calendar that you could share with the viewing audience, especially if they live in South Carolina or in the Columbia area, or just interested in, making a trip to the region
Okay.
and, connecting, trying to get involved as well. What do you have on the horizon for yourself?
So I am an outdoor Afro leader, so I would encourage anybody who's watching to connect with their local outdoor Afro network. What I am looking forward to in 2018 is to do a lot more camping, because I love camping, and I love the communities that camping kind of brings about. I feel like definitely camping is still one of those things that people have the misperception that Black people don't do.
Yeah.
My family and I, we camp a lot, so we'll be camping out more in 2018.
Let me put a pin in that. We're not talking about just glamping, glamorous camping. They are actually out pitching tents,
Yes,
on the water.
yes, yeah, we're camping.
Camping. Okay.
Yeah, we're camping.
Pan out. Go right ahead.
I also have been I really have made some good relationships with the state Autobahn chapter.
Okay.
So looking forward to try and plan some outings, and again also a sort of camping trip kind of thing with the Autobahn chapters. One of the things I'm very interested in is, again, because of my background and how my degree is in cultural heritage informatics and museum management, looking at and understanding those missing and suppressed narratives that are not always shown in our national park systems. And even if they are, they're still slightly marginalized sometimes in the way that they're framed.
Okay.
So I want to try and visit as many monuments and historical markers and parks, try and more richly understand those narratives and histories. And I think the other thing is I want to learn how to paddleboard.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I want to do some paddleboard in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, try some new and different things. The other thing I used to live in Arizona. In Arizona, I'm saying everybody, but we had a large community of people who did geocaching.
Okay.
And so I want to try and do some more of that in 2018. I haven't done that in a while, but I do want to do some geocaching in 2018.
Wow. Well, so just for the viewing audience, exactly what is geocaching?
So geocaching actually is it's an international sport or activity, if you will. So groups of people get together, and they're given almost, it's basically like a scavenger hunt.
Okay.
And so you're given
We're not talking about Pokemon.
No.
Okay.
It does have some elements of that.
I know that was the big thing a few years ago, but you're
Mhm.
talking about something a little more technical. So
Yes.
not Pokemon, something else. Okay.
So you're kind of given like a GPS and some coordinates, and then you can go like in teams or as a sort of caravan. And so the whole goal is that those coordinates kind of send you from geographic location to geographic location. And so
Okay.
depending on how the person who coordinated the event frames it, you can the caches are hidden.
Okay.
A number of places. If I'm not mistaken, there's like a international website with all the different.
So it could be regional, domestic, international, just depending on how.
Some people have
far-
caches in their yard.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and so, like for example, one time I went on an event and it was like, it looks exactly like a real garden rock, but
Okay.
inside it was a plastic garden rock, and you screw off the little top, and inside was like a note or like a scroll that was like, "Hey, you made it," and you
Oh,
sign
really?
it, you put
Okay.
the date on it. So it's just kind of, it's like a fun sort of mystery GPS kind of scavenger hunt kind of game. Like I said, I know people do it like across the globe. You can do like whole international trips just doing geocaches, but it's really fun. And we actually, my family and I did it a few years ago at Sesame Park. They
Okay.
had like a geocaching event, and you kind of just, you go to different locations across the park, and that was fun. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like fun for the upcoming year. But again, I thank you. You just shared a lot of gems
Thank
with
you.
myself as well as the viewing audience. And for everyone who's watching or listening, I hope that you picked up on some amazing sites that Dr. Moore has talked about. If you're able to get to South Carolina in the Midlands area, in the city of Columbia, she shared information about Congaree National Park, Sesqui, I'm not sure if it's National Park, but Sesqui
It's,
State
it's a
Park.
state park.
Sesqui State Park. Even here, we're in Columbia, which is the capital city of South Carolina. So there's a lot of history just in this city as well. And if you're ever able to make it, always reach out to her to learn more about the healing hikes. But again, I thank you, and I just appreciate all your knowledge, your wisdom, your insights and perspectives on how we could do more as it relates to the environment in our community and our culture. And I hope you have as well.
Yes.
Oh, that was
All right, thank
cool.
you.
Thank you.